welcome back. My name is Mark Sela. This is the third and final video in a three-part series regarding the Adobe Photoshop toolbar. If you haven't seen the other two, I'll go ahead and link those below in the description, and let's get started. The type tool, it does exactly what it sounds like. We've got the horizontal type tool, the vertical, and then we've got these type masks. And while I won't go into a ton of information about these, I do want to show you the difference between a type tool and a type mask tool. So the type tool allows you to type out text. Pretty self-explanatory. You've got a lot of different options up here. You've got your different typeface and font choices, your different sizes. You have different types of anti-aliasing that you can work with up here, paragraph justification, the normal things that you would find whenever you're dealing with type. You've got this kind of little nifty warp tool here that if you want to create an arc, you can do that. You can adjust the bends of these types of things. And if you want to fish, yes, there is a fish distortion that you can use. The difference between this and the vertical, you can pretty much see it here. It will type vertically. In other words, you can click here and it'll type vertically like this, or it'll allow you to type vertically like that. The difference between that and the mask tools is that the mask tools don't type out type. You can type out selections. Let's click here. You can see immediately that there's a difference because the screen grows red, and whatever I type out looks black on there. But the second that I go to any other tool, what you'll see here is that this isn't type anymore. It is a selection. Now, the thing that confuses a lot of people when they use this tool is that if you misspell something or whatever else, people think that you can go back into this tool and like normal text, you can click on this and you can select the text again. You can't. It looks like text at this point, but it's not text. It's just a selection. So let's say that I want to use this picture of a pineapple as the background for some text. So what I would do is go into the horizontal type mask tool and just click somewhere on the image, and I'm going to just type out pineapple here. Okay, so let's make this a little bit bigger. And we'll just kind of situate it somewhere in here. Like I said before, if you click anywhere else on the canvas and you get out of this, then this is pretty much set in stone at this point. So you can still move the selection around just like you do any other selection. You can add and subtract to it and so on. So if I just go to any of these move tools, let's just say the first ones that we had here, I can move the selection around just fine. And when I get it positioned exactly where I want to get it positioned, then I can do with it what I need to do with it. So in this particular case, what I want to do is use the pineapple as the background for the letters. So have the letters actually made up of the image of the pineapple. So I created this selection here. And what I'm going to do is inverse that selection. In other words, I'm going to take what was selected, deselect it, and then I'm going to hit delete. And what that gives me now is the word with the photograph as the background. There are a million ways that you can do this, and I know that there are non-destructive ways to do it and so on, but as far as demonstrating this particular tool, this is really what this tool is meant for. It's to be able to take an image and use it as text. Now, the next set of tools, the path selection tools, this is something, these tools used to actually reside within the pen tool years ago. And Photoshop kind of expanded the amount of tools that had paths and anchor points. These are used to modify paths and anchor points. So basically, if we've got our pen tool here, and we lay out these anchor points and paths, the black arrow, which is the path selection tool, will move the entire path, whereas the direct selection will move specific parts of the path. This is something, again, that we're not going to go really over these tools too much because that really takes an entire pen tool lecture, and that's kind of not what we're doing here. So the next set of tools are some basic shape tools. They, by default, may appear to be under a rectangle or whatever else. I obviously use the line tool last, so that's why you're seeing it here. These are just basic shapes. If I click down and drag here, I created just a basic shape that is the color of whatever the foreground was at the time. There are a few different ways that you can do this. You can do what's called creating a shape. So you can create a shape like this, and there is an accompanying layer in the layers palette that we won't get into that has to deal with this. This is an editable shape. You can see here that we've got anchor points and we've got paths, so the pen tool would be good to edit this. We also have just a path that you can drag out. So if we did this, this is basically an editable pen tool path so that you can eventually turn into a selection. And then there's also just pixels. So what this does is it doesn't really do anything else other than create this object. So this one is editable, this one is not editable, and then the path one over here, it disappeared because we weren't using that selection anymore. All of these tools that are underneath here, they all really adhere to this kind of editing structure. You have to decide whether or not you want an actual shape layer, just a path to use with like the pen tool, or if you just want to put an object onto a layer that's just a bunch of pixels. There are different applications for each one of these. Again, I'm not going to go over those right now, but if you need just a basic shape and you need it quickly, that's the way to do it. So this next one here is actually part of some viewing tools. They really work in conjunction with one another here. This hand tool, the rotate tool, and the magnifying glass, these all kind of work in conjunction with one another. This, again, is going to be one of the few times where I'm going to say it's probably important for you to learn the keyboard shortcuts for these particular tools, because it makes life that much easier. I think that, as I've said before, most of what you should really be doing in the beginning in Photoshop is going under each one of the menus and finding out where a lot of these things reside. And you can later learn the keyboard shortcuts by looking directly to the right of these, and you'll see the keyboard shortcuts in here. And if you want to use those, you can. And plus, there are ways to set up custom keyboard shortcuts and so on. But from the very beginning, kind of like the adding to and subtracting from selections and how important that is, I really think it's important to understand the difference between these tools and how to actually access these viewing tools. So let's talk about that right now. So as far as I know, with these keyboard shortcuts, the only difference between a PC and a Mac are going to be the use of the term command or control. On a Mac, you're going to be using a command key. On a PC, you're going to be using control instead of that command key. But either way, you really need to learn these if you're going to become proficient in Photoshop. So the first one is if you're on any tool and you hit the space bar, you're going to get this little hand. And if you're zoomed in on an image like I am right now, then what that allows you to do is when you click down, it allows you to move the canvas around. So instead of being zoomed out, and let's say that we zoom in to here, and if I want to get up to where the actual markers are, instead of zooming out and zooming back in, what I can do is just do this. And then I'm up here on that part of the image. This is so helpful to know. If we want to zoom in, it's going to be spacebar command key, or on a PC, spacebar control, and we can zoom in. Now, you have a few different options with this. You can click and drag, and you can zoom in. If you just hold down, it'll slowly zoom in, or you can just click and zoom in. I click and zoom in because I've been in Photoshop long enough that that was the only way that you could do it. At one point, I mean, you could marquee it and do it also, but for the most part, I just click in and do that. But it's up to you. One isn't better than the other. It's just a preference. To zoom out, you want spacebar and you want Option. And that'll allow you to zoom out. So to zoom in, spacebar, Command key, unless you're on a PC, then it's spacebar Control, and then spacebar Option to zoom out. Now, if you want to fit the entire image onto the screen at once, you want to do Command 0 on a Mac or Control 0 on a PC, and it'll fit it all onto the screen at the same time. So I really think that those are keyboard shortcuts that you should really know. You should know how to zoom in, how to zoom out, and how to fit the entire image on your screen at one time. Those are things that you will use every day that you use these applications. So it's something that I think in the beginning it's important to learn. So down here at the bottom underneath the magnifying glass, we have this little menu here. And what this is this allows you to edit the toolbar. You can see here that these are a lot of tools that I actually don't use. And so I put them into this category that's just down here. There are things that I have used, that most of these I know how to use just fine. I just don't use them that often. And in my workflow, they kind of become a nuisance. So I've put them down into here. You can actually go in and edit the toolbar here, and it allows you to edit what is in that toolbar and for you to arrange it the way that you want. What you want to do if you do that is you want to make sure to save the preset so that if you, for some reason, have to reset Photoshop or you go to another version of Photoshop and you want to take these settings with you, that you can just load that preset in later and you'll have your toolbar exactly the way that you want it. Down here is the color picker. The color picker is divided up into a few different areas here. Let me actually zoom in a little bit more than what I was before, and we'll take a look at this. This right here, what this does is it sets your foreground and your background color, and that's what these are divided into, your foreground and your background. In Illustrator and InDesign, this is actually a foreground and a stroke color. But in Photoshop, it's different because this is a foreground and a background. What this does is it sets your foreground and background to absolute black and absolute white. There are a lot of technical reasons why you would want it reset to absolute black and absolute white. Something I'm not going to get into at the moment, but just know that it does serve a function. This little arrow right here, what this does is it allows you to switch between the foreground and the background colors. So if you were painting with a paintbrush, and you were painting black, if you wanted to quickly move to white instead, you could do this. A little keyboard shortcut for this, if you want to know it, if you leave your cursor over it, you can see here is just the letter X. The letter X will allow you to do that as well. Down here, we've got quick masks. This is another way to actually create selections. This is not something that I'm going to go into today. I personally like some more accurate ways of selecting things. I used to use quick masks quite a bit and I don't really do it anymore. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, just means I don't do it. So down here at the bottom, what we have are just the different screen modes. And you can also change this by just hitting the letter F. And this will also change them. So we have a standard screen mode, which means that Photoshop will just float like any other application. Full screen mode with menu bar. Basically, when we do this, you can see here, it fills up the entire window, but we still have our menu bar at the top. And then this right here, full screen mode, this gets rid of everything but the image itself. Let me actually turn off the rulers here. Okay. So what this allows you to do is to present an image or a design or whatever else in a way that isn't distracting when you're showing it to a client or just to yourself. If you want to look at it without all this other distracting things on screen, you can do that. So if you hit the letter F, it will also do this and allow you to quickly scroll through. Thanks for watching part 3 of the Adobe Photoshop Toolbar by Mark Sala Graphics. Again, if you haven't seen the other 2 videos and would like to, I have them linked in the description, and thank you for watching.